Hey, so this is going to be another video on incels and why I relate to them, but not to their ideology. So let's get into it. For those of you that don't know, I have some things in common with incels. I am 30 years old. I've never had a serious relationship. I'm a virgin. And, I can relate to that area about being an incel. In fact, I'm a true cell. However, I don't agree with a lot of the ideology of the black pill, red pill, or other right wing thinking of incel forums. And one also quick note before I get more into that is here I'm not referencing the extreme hate ideologies of incel forums. I mean, with that, it's kind of a given that I don't agree with that, and I think even a lot of incels don't agree with that. Like the types that endorse extreme misogyny, extreme racism, extreme violence. That's obviously something that I and even a lot of incels would never consider. But here I'm just more addressing mainstream incel way of thinking, like some of the red pill, black pill ideas. Um, but one of the main reasons I really disagree with incels on a lot of this is that I come from a much different background than most incels. I am currently a nihilistic atheist, but I come from a very conservative Christian right wing background, and in a small town in Missouri. And I've noticed a lot of incels usually come from a little bit more moderate or liberal backgrounds in bigger cities, and they seem to think that if they were in an area where women were more basic, were more um, conservative, were, married at an earlier age, were, following the more traditional model, that would seemingly solve all their problems as well, because naturally they would be getting married to those girls, or naturally, those girls would be, I guess, by not sleeping around more, they'd be sleeping with them or something. I don't know. But the bottom line is what I'm just saying on this is it is not the heaven on earth you think it is. Trust me. In fact, if anything, it's a much, much lower circle of hell. Because let me put it this way. Uh, Being the only guy in my class from the small school that I come from that is not married, whereas just about all but one other guy in the class are married, and that guy is gay, and he's actually a repressed gay man who's very religious, who can't get married. But that's a whole other issue, so I don't want to get off topic. But sometimes it is kind of easy to wonder if there's something wrong with me, and if there's something that I'm just seriously flawed in as a human being. So I understand that area of how incels think. But the thing I can guarantee you is that I've learned as I've gotten older that I am really very lucky to not be in a relationship like some of them are, because I've seen some of those guys and girls from my class get into really bad marriages over their 20s that have seriously screwed up some areas of their lives. They've lost friends, they've lost jobs, they've lost, all sorts of other things from being in a bad marriage. So the bottom line is what I'm just trying to say to incel alumnus is, you know, having been in that perfect world that you idolize, I can assure you it doesn't have nearly the positive outcome that you think it's going to. And I think it kind of comes down to, one basic premise of relationships, which is that, anyone who's married will tell you that, it is far better to be in a happy marriage than it is to be single, but it's far better to be single than to be in a miserable marriage or any kind of miserable relationship. And as far as having sex goes, I would refer you to a Louis C.K. bit from his stand-up where he says, yeah, if being married was about having sex with that same woman every night, I would love to be married. I wouldn't care if she was as big and fat as me and had a beard like me. But he's like, but that's not what marriage is. He's like, yeah, basically, you're lucky if you ever get lucky. And trust me, just go ask any married guy and they'll tell you the same thing. They probably can't remember the last time. So that's what another thing I'm trying to communicate to incels as well is that I think they seriously take the wrong approach to this problem. And as a nihilistic and liberal atheist, that's where I try to push the other way on this and try to say that what we really need more is we need greater sexual liberation, both for women and men. We need men who are single to not necessarily or especially men who are single like us and that are not necessarily successful in the dating realm of life, to not necessarily be bullied and villainized, for not, I guess, just, having that much success in this realm, not be made fun of for being virgins, not made fun of for being losers or something. And of course, all incels that are listening to this know what I mean on that. A guy who's not really succeeding in this realm of life will be mercilessly made fun of, whereas a woman will usually be empathized with and put up on a pedestal. But also, it goes for women too, because um, there is still a lot of slut shaming that goes on, and a lot of incels also hate on things like pornography. They hate on cam girls, and I can assure you it makes no sense to me whatsoever either, because having lived a good chunk of my life trying to purify myself of those kind of vices, as I used to think of them back when I was in that world, I can assure you it is far more miserable to be a virgin guy who does not have those things in your life than does. And that's one reason it's kind of gotten easier for me becoming an older virgin and becoming an older bachelor, is I'm beginning to learn, what is and is not conducive to the lifestyle of one. And, just for example, too, though, guys, as far as, cam girls go, and as far as those kind of websites, one of the coolest girls that I ever met some years ago was actually on a campsite. She actually lived not that far from where I was, and she's way cooler than any of the girls I knew from high school or anywhere in life, and way more beautiful and a lot of things. But, she has no real interest in me, and that's fine. I mean, I did kind of even ask her out a few times, but, point is, I wouldn't, just write off anything and everything, that you think runs contrary to, that gives any kind of liberation to women, or anything that you think, may be in line with something that a feminist would say or promote, because I also, at one point in life, I remember when I had a very bad feminist teacher in college, she kind of got me temporarily pushed away from the issue, thinking that feminists were all just man-hating femcells, because she was. And she pushed a lot of weird, messed up conservative ideology with her feminist ideology. Like, she was extremely empathetic to Islam and some of its flawed ways of thinking. So I understand a little bit of the anti-feminist, ways of thinking that go with incels as well. But I know also, from having studied more on gender studies after that, and gender relations, that's not the way all feminists think. There are actually a fair number of feminists out there that are pretty common sense, that are just pushing for greater equality between both the sexes, and as a byproduct, they're also pushing for greater rights for women in terms of how they can make their choices in life and not be judged in terms of who they choose for a partner and who they do not choose. And in the long run, that benefits us as well. So I know it's kind of just a random rant, and I know that this is kind of a bit of a bizarre perspective, because it seems that most people that are like me, have a little bit different views on a lot of this than I do, or, who come from the same background that I do, they still have a little bit more of a conservative ideology. And a lot of incels that, come from backgrounds that I wish I did, they also have more of those conservative ideas that they idolize and put on a pedestal, though they've never experienced them. So, like I said, those are just the two things I just wanted to emphasize on this and go on a rant about here. Was just, I think a lot of incels need to mostly focus on what the problems they have within are, and usually that is pretty much an antisocial problems of some kind. Like I said, not judging. I can relate to it myself. I have the exact same issues. And another one is that their solutions for society should be less focused on a traditionalist conservative ideology like is espoused in the red pill, black pill ideology, and more focused on promoting greater sexual liberation for both men and women, and for focusing on basically, I think, just less people getting married, less people being stigmatized for getting a divorce, less people being just stigmatized for any kind of choices they make like that. So if you're an incel and you agree, or you're not an incel and you just have strong feelings about this, feel free to comment below. Tell me what you think. Other than that, just like, share, subscribe, and see you next time. Bye.